Chapter 1. The Crumbs of Compassion. The wind, a relentless sculptor of the city's forgotten corners, whipped through Maya's threadbare coat. Each gust felt like 100 icy needles pricking her exposed skin. She huddled deeper into the alcove of a shuttered shop, the cardboard she'd scavenged providing a meager shield against the unforgiving pavement. Maya was a ghost in the bustling metropolis, a whisper lost in the cacophony of hurried footsteps and indifferent glances. Her world was a kaleidoscope of grimy windows, overflowing bins, and the constant gnawing ache of hunger. Today, however, the gnawing was different. It was a dull throb, a distant echo of a more profound emptiness. She clutched her tattered purse, her fingers tracing the worn fabric. Inside, nestled amongst crumpled tissues and a smooth gray pebble she'd found on a rare beach excursion, lay her entire fortune, a crisp $5 bill. It was a king's ransom, earned through a day of arduous work collecting recyclables, a testament to her unwavering determination. She'd been dreaming of a warm meal, a thick stew perhaps, or even just a loaf of fresh bread to break her fast. The thought made her stomach clench with anticipation. As she began to pull herself out of her makeshift shelter, preparing to seek out the corner bakery with the enticing aroma of yeast and sugar, a figure slumped against the opposite wall caught her eye. He was an older man, his face a roadmap of hardship, etched with a weariness that mirrored her own, yet somehow deeper, more profound. His clothes were threadbare, his frame gaunt, and a desolate stillness emanated from him. He coughed, a ragged, dry sound that seemed to tear at his chest. Maya hesitated. Her instinct, honed by years of self-preservation, screamed at her to move on, to protect her precious $5. But a different voice, a gentler, more persistent whisper, tugged at her conscience. She remembered her grandmother's words, spoken with a warm hand on her cheek. Kindness, child, is a currency that never depreciates. With a sigh that was more surrender than resignation, Maya approached him. His eyes, when they flickered open, were a startlingly clear blue, filled with a profound sadness that pierced her heart. "Excuse me," she murmured, her voice raspy. "Are you all right?" He simply shook his head, a barely perceptible movement. The desperation in his gaze was a silent plea. Maya's hand instinctively went to her purse. The $5 bill felt heavy, almost sacred. But looking at the man, at the raw vulnerability etched on his face, the imagined warmth of the stew faded. "Here," she said, her voice firmer now as she extended the bill. "This is all I have. Please, take it. Get something to eat." The man stared at the money, then at her, his blue eyes widening with disbelief. He hesitated, his weathered hand trembling as he reached for it. You don't have to," he rasped, his voice a dry whisper. "It's all right," Maya insisted, forcing a smile. "We all need a little help sometimes." He took the bill, his fingers brushing hers. A strange jolt, like static electricity, passed between them. He clutched the money tightly, his gaze fixed on her, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, the words thick with emotion. "Thank you very much." Maya watched him, a strange warmth spreading through her, a warmth that had nothing to do with food. She turned to face the bakery, the dream of stew now replaced by a quiet satisfaction, a sense of having done something right, in a world that often felt overwhelmingly wrong. The wind still blew, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel quite so cold. Chapter 2. A Shadow of Doubt. The bakery's warm, yeasty aroma was a siren song, but Maya's usual destination felt distant, almost unreal. The encounter with the man had left an imprint, a ripple in the placid surface of her daily struggle. She found herself replaying the scene, the man's surprised eyes, the tremor in his hand as he accepted the bill. There was something about him, a quiet dignity that belied his outward appearance, that lingered in her thoughts. As she navigated the bustling sidewalks, her senses on high alert for any potential discarded treasures, a sleek black limousine glided to a halt at the curb. A man in a sharp, impeccably tailored suit emerged, his movements fluid and confident. He was flanked by a security detail, their stoic faces betraying nothing. Maya barely registered their presence, her attention drawn to something else. a familiar worn leather wallet being retrieved from the suit's breast pocket. Her breath hitched. It was the wallet, the worn, familiar shape of the wallet she had just seen in the hands of the disheveled man. A cold dread began to spread through her. Her mind, accustomed to piecing together fragmented clues, raced. Could it be a coincidence? The city was vast, and similar wallets, she supposed, could exist. But the texture, the subtle fraying at the edges, it was too familiar. The man in the suit, oblivious to her scrutiny, spoke briefly into a hidden earpiece. His voice, even from this distance, was deep and resonant, a stark contrast to the man's hoarse whisper. Maya watched, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. The man then turned, his gaze sweeping across the street, and for a fleeting second, his eyes met hers. There was no recognition, no hint of the gratitude she'd seen earlier. His eyes were cool, assessing, and completely unreadable. Then he turned away, his attention swiftly recaptured by his entourage. The limousine doors closed, and the vehicle pulled away, disappearing into the stream of traffic as if it had never been there. Maya stood frozen, a knot of confusion tightening in her stomach. Her initial glow of altruism had curdled into a sour suspicion. Had she been played? Had she given her last $5 to a con artist, a performer adept at eliciting sympathy? The thought was a bitter pill to swallow. She, who had so little, had given it away to someone who, judging by the car and the suit, seemed to have an abundance. She walked on, her steps heavier, her gaze no longer searching for discarded treasures, but scanning the faces of passers-by with a newfound wariness. The world suddenly seemed a little less forgiving, a little more treacherous. Had she been a fool? Had her act of kindness been misplaced, or worse, exploited? The unanswered questions swirled, creating a shadow of doubt that dimmed the bright promise of the morning. The city, once a place of potential opportunity, now felt like a labyrinth of deception, and she, Maya, was lost within it, unsure of who to trust, or even how to trust herself. Chapter 3. Whispers of a Fortune. The doubt that had settled in Maya's heart was a persistent companion, whispering unsettling possibilities throughout the day. Every interaction felt tinged with suspicion. Had that street vendor's smile been genuine, or a prelude to a hustle? Was the woman who asked for directions truly lost, or setting up a distraction? Her meager earnings from collecting more recyclables felt tainted by the lingering uncertainty. As dusk began to paint the sky in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange, Maya found herself drawn to a different part of the city, a neighborhood she usually avoided. It was an area of gleaming skyscrapers, their windows reflecting the dying light like 1,000 watchful eyes. Her usual haunts were the forgotten alleys and underpasses, places where the city's underbelly was exposed. But tonight, an invisible thread seemed to pull her towards this opulent district. She walked along the periphery of a grand hotel, its entrance a dazzling spectacle of polished marble and cascading flower arrangements. People in elegant attire streamed in and out, their laughter and chatter a world away from her own. She felt like an alien, an intruder in this realm of privilege. Suddenly she overheard snippets of conversation drifting from an open patio, the murmur of voices punctuated by the clinking of crystal glasses. The words acquisition, merger, and quarterly reports floated on the air. Maya, despite her circumstances, possessed a keen mind and a sharp ear for language. She'd learned to decipher the nuances of conversation by listening to snippets on public transport and from the occasional discarded newspaper. She recognized some of the jargon, a testament to her innate intelligence and her constant observation of the world around her. Then a name was spoken, a name that sent a shiver down her spine. Mr. Sterling. The speaker, a man with a booming voice and a confident air, was clearly discussing business dealings. Sterling's latest move is audacious, he declared, his voice carrying clearly. Acquiring that tech giant, it's going to redefine the industry. He truly is a visionary, and to think he started with nothing, just pure grit and an uncanny knack for making the right decisions. Maya's heart began to race again, but this time it wasn't with suspicion. It was with a dawning, almost unbelievable realization Mr. Sterling. The name resonated with a power she couldn't quite explain. She recalled the news reports she'd glimpsed, the fleeting headlines about a reclusive billionaire CEO who had built an empire from the ground up, a man known for his strategic brilliance and his almost mythical rise to prominence. Could it be? Could the man she had given her last $5 to, the man with the clear blue eyes and the worn wallet, be this enigmatic Mr. Sterling? The thought was preposterous, yet the pieces, however improbable, began to align. The worn wallet, the quiet dignity, the almost regal bearing that had momentarily surfaced. She continued to listen, straining to catch more. The conversation shifted, and another name was mentioned, this time with a hint of admiration. His new venture. He's investing heavily in humanitarian efforts. Seems he hasn't forgotten where he came from, despite all his success. Maya leaned against a lamppost, her knees feeling weak. The city lights blurred before her eyes. The idea that her small act of compassion might have been offered to one of the most powerful men in the world was overwhelming. It was a fairy tale, a twist of fate so improbable it felt like a dream. But the whispered words, the fragments of overheard conversation, were tangible. They were the breadcrumbs leading her down a path she never could have imagined, a path that hinted at a fortune, both in wealth and in the potential for a different kind of future. Chapter 4: A Calculated Encounter. The following morning, Maya found herself drawn back to the vicinity of the Grand Hotel, her mind a whirlwind of possibilities. Sterling's generosity, coupled with the undeniable possibility that he was the man she had helped, had ignited a spark of hope, however faint. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, perhaps just a confirmation, a fleeting glimpse that would either solidify or shatter her burgeoning theory. She positioned herself across the street, partially concealed by a large planter, her gaze fixed on the hotel's entrance. Hours passed, the city came alive, a torrent of activity flowing around her, yet she remained a still point in the storm. Her stomach grumbled, a familiar ache, but the hunger was overshadowed by a nervous anticipation. Just as the sun reached its zenith, a familiar sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb. Maya's heart leaped. This was it. The same car, the same aura of quiet power. The door opened, and the man in the impeccably tailored suit emerged, the security detail surrounding him. Maya held her breath, her eyes locked on his face. Then he turned, his gaze sweeping across the street. This time his eyes met hers and something shifted. A flicker of recognition, subtle but unmistakable, crossed his features. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that same cool, assessing look. But Maya had seen it, she was sure of it. He paused for a moment, his gaze lingering on her slightly longer than before. Then, to her utter astonishment, he detached himself from his security detail, taking a few steps in her direction. He stopped a few feet away, his posture relaxed, yet radiating an undeniable authority. "Good morning," he said, his voice the same deep, resonant tone she'd heard earlier. It was calm, polite, and devoid of any overt emotion. Maya's voice felt lodged in her throat. She managed a shaky, "Good morning." He offered a small, enigmatic smile. "I believe we've met before." His words confirmed her suspicions. He remembered her. Maya's mind raced for a plausible explanation, a way to acknowledge the encounter without revealing the full extent of her deductions. "Yes," she said, choosing her words carefully. "I think I helped you with something a few days ago. You looked like you were in need." He nodded slowly, his blue eyes, so clear and deep, studying her with an intensity that made her feel both scrutinized and seen. "You did," he confirmed. "And I am grateful. It was a difficult moment for me." He paused, a subtle shift in his expression, a hint of something softer. "You showed me kindness when I expected none. That is a rare commodity." Maya felt a blush creep up her neck. She hadn't expected him to acknowledge it so directly. "It was nothing," she mumbled, feeling a surge of awkwardness. "I'm glad I could help." He tilted his head, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Nothing is ever truly nothing, is it? Sometimes the smallest acts have the greatest impact." He then reached into his inner jacket pocket, and Maya braced herself, expecting him to perhaps offer her some money, a transactional gesture of repayment. Instead, he produced a small, elegant business card. "My name is Julian Sterling," he said, extending the card to her. "And if you ever find yourself in need of assistance, or simply wish to discuss the impact of kindness, please do not hesitate to call." Maya took the card, her fingers brushing his. It was thick, embossed with gold lettering. Her entire life she had never held anything so luxurious. The name on the card, Julian Sterling, echoed the whisper she had overheard. He was not just a billionaire, he was the billionaire. The impossible had just become tangible. This wasn't just a chance encounter, it was a calculated one, orchestrated by a man who recognized her act of genuine compassion. Chapter 5. A glimpse of another world. Holding Julian Sterling's business card felt like holding a ticket to a different universe. Maya traced the embossed lettering, the smooth, cool surface a stark contrast to the rough textures of her everyday life. The card was a physical manifestation of the impossible encounter, a tangible link to a world she had only ever observed from the fringes. She tucked it carefully into her worn purse, a secret treasure more valuable than any she had ever found. The rest of the day was a blur. She moved through her routine with a strange detachment, her mind constantly replaying the brief exchange on the street. Julian Sterling. The name itself held a certain gravitas, a weight that seemed to pull at the fabric of her reality. He had remembered her. He had acknowledged her act of kindness, and he had given her his card. It was an invitation, a possibility. That evening, instead of seeking out her usual cardboard refuge, Maya found herself near a park she rarely visited, a manicured expanse of green that felt out of place in the grimy urban landscape. She sat on a cold park bench, the chill seeping through her thin clothes, and pulled out the business card again. The embossed name seemed to gleam even in the dim light. She considered calling him. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. What would she say? What could she possibly offer him in return for his time and attention? She had nothing but her life, a life lived on the margins. Yet the memory of his clear blue eyes, the quiet gratitude he had shown, urged her on. She finally succumbed to the impulse. With trembling fingers, she dialed the number on the card. It rang for a long time, and just as she was about to hang up, a calm, deep voice answered. "Sterling." Maya's breath hitched. It was him. "Sterling?" she managed to croak out. "Yes?" His tone was polite, patient. "It's Maya," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "The woman from the street. I found your card." There was a brief pause. "Maya," he said, his voice softening slightly. "I was hoping you would call. Are you safe?" The genuine concern in his voice was disarming. "Yes, I'm safe," she replied. I wanted to thank you again. And I was curious. You mentioned discussing kindness." Another pause, this one filled with a subtle warmth. "Indeed," he said. "Perhaps we could discuss it over a meal, somewhere quiet, if you're amenable." Maya's heart did a somersault. A meal, with Julian Sterling? It felt surreal. "I don't have anything nice to wear," she stammered, a wave of self-consciousness washing over her. "Your presence is attire enough," he replied smoothly. "Meet me at the Gilded Lily, tomorrow at 7. I will arrange for transportation." Even Maya had heard of it. A restaurant whispered about in hushed tones, synonymous with exclusivity and exorbitant prices. She agreed, her voice barely audible. As she hung up, a strange mix of trepidation and excitement coursed through her. She was stepping out of her world and into his, a world of glittering chandeliers and hushed conversations, a world where kindness, it seemed, could indeed open doors she never knew existed. The prospect was both terrifying and undeniably alluring. Chapter 6. The Gilded Lily. The next evening, Maya stood outside the discreet, unmarked entrance of the Gilded Lily, feeling like an imposter in borrowed clothes. A discreet driver, sent by Mr. Sterling, had collected her an hour earlier, taking her to a small, elegant boutique where a kindly saleswoman had helped her choose a simple, yet sophisticated, dark blue dress. The fabric felt impossibly soft against her skin, a far cry from the rough textures she was accustomed to. Her hair, usually a tangled mess, had been brushed and styled, and a touch of subtle makeup had been applied, transforming her appearance in ways she hadn't thought possible. As she stepped inside, she was immediately enveloped in an atmosphere of hushed opulence. Soft jazz music filled the air, and the gentle murmur of conversations created a cocoon of refined ambiance. The lighting was warm and inviting, casting a golden glow on the polished wood and plush velvet. Julian Sterling was already there, seated at a secluded table in a corner, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He looked just as he had on the street, impeccably dressed, exuding an aura of quiet authority. But tonight, his eyes held a warmth that was absent before. He rose as she approached, a genuine smile gracing his lips. "Maya," he said, his voice warm, "you look radiant." Maya's cheeks flushed. "This is a beautiful place." "Please, call me Julian," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "And you are Maya. We are here to discuss the impact of kindness, are we not?" The evening unfolded like a dream. The food was exquisite, a symphony of flavors she had only ever imagined. But more captivating than the meal was the conversation. Julian spoke not of his vast wealth or his business empire, but of his past, of the struggles he had faced before his success. He spoke of the pivotal moments, the people who had offered him a helping hand, and how those seemingly small acts had shaped his trajectory. "There was a time," he confessed, his gaze distant, "when I was as desperate as that man on the street. I had nothing, and a stranger, a woman who had less than me, shared her meager meal with me. That act of selfless generosity, it stayed with me. It taught me that even in our darkest hours we have something to give, and that giving can be its own reward." Maya listened, mesmerized. He wasn't just a billionaire CEO. He was a man who understood hardship, a man who carried the weight of his past with grace. She in turn spoke hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, about her own experiences, her struggles, her hopes. Julian listened intently, his gaze never wavering, offering insightful questions, and a genuine empathy that made her feel understood in a way she never had before. He spoke of his philanthropic endeavors, not with boasting but with a quiet conviction. "I believe in investing in people," he said, "in giving them the tools and opportunities to build their own lives, just as someone once did for me." As the evening drew to a close, Maya felt a profound sense of connection to Julian. The vast chasm that had once separated their worlds seemed to have narrowed, bridged by shared understanding and mutual respect. He hadn't treated her as a charity case, but as an equal, a confidant. When Julian walked her back to the waiting car, he paused. "Maya," he said, his voice a little softer, "I find myself drawn to your spirit. Your resilience, your compassion, they are rare qualities. Would you be open to seeing me again?" Maya, still reeling from the evening's revelations, could only nod, a hopeful smile blooming on her face. The Gilded Lily had been more than just a restaurant. It had been a gateway, and Julian Sterling had opened it for her. Chapter 7, A Foundation of Trust. The days that followed were a delicate dance between two vastly different worlds. Maya continued her life, navigating the familiar streets and the challenges they presented, but now, with a secret joy that illuminated her days. Julian, true to his word, called often, their conversations growing longer and more intimate. He never pried, never pushed, but gently encouraged her to share her thoughts and dreams. He would often arrange for them to meet, not always at extravagant venues, but sometimes at quiet cafes or for walks in less populated parks. These encounters were a revelation for Maya. Julian treated her with an unshakable respect, never forgetting her circumstances but never letting them define her in his eyes. He seemed to see the core of her, the strength and kindness that had first caught his attention. One afternoon, Julian invited Maya to his office. It wasn't the imposing skyscraper she had imagined, but a modern, airy building with sweeping views of the city. He personally showed her around, introducing her to his staff with a casual warmth that put her at ease. Maya, despite her initial apprehension, found herself feeling surprisingly comfortable. The people he worked with were efficient and professional, but also carried an air of genuine collegiality. "I'm starting a new initiative," Julian explained, leading her to a sun-drenched conference room, a foundation dedicated to providing support and resources for individuals experiencing homelessness. "I want it to be more than just a handout. I want it to be a pathway, to self-sufficiency. And he turned to her, his blue eyes earnest. I would be. Chapter 8. Whispers of an Alliance. The partnership on the foundation was more than just a professional collaboration. It was a crucible that forged an unspoken bond between Maya and Julian. They spent hours together, debating the best ways to reach and support those most in need, their discussions often stretching late into the evening. Maya's insights, born from first-hand experience, were sharp and practical, while Julian's strategic vision and vast resources provided the framework for their ambitions. As they worked, Maya began to notice a subtle shift in Julian's demeanor when he was with her. The guarded reserve that often clung to him in public softened, replaced by a genuine vulnerability. He would share anecdotes from his childhood, moments of doubt and insecurity, revealing the man behind the formidable CEO. Maya, in turn, found herself opening up more freely, sharing her fears and aspirations with a candor that surprised even herself. One evening, after a particularly productive session at the Foundation's temporary office, Julian drove Maya home, not to her usual alcove, but to a small, clean apartment he had discreetly arranged for her. It was a modest space, but it was hers, a sanctuary from the streets. The sheer thoughtfulness of the gesture, the quiet understanding of her needs, moved Maya deeply. As he walked her to the door, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, Julian paused. Maya, he said, his voice lower than usual, I find myself looking forward to our time together more than I ever anticipated. You bring a clarity, a perspective that I value immensely. Maya's heart fluttered. I feel the same way, Julian. You've changed my life in so many ways. He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her cheek. The touch was electric, sending a shiver through her. It's more than just a foundation, isn't it? He asked, his gaze intense. I feel a connection with you, Maya, a deep one. Maya could only nod, her throat tight with emotion. The unspoken acknowledgement hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. This wasn't just about charity anymore. It was about something far more profound. Julian leaned in, and Maya closed her eyes, anticipating a kiss. But instead, he pulled back slightly, his expression thoughtful. There are people who will say this is improbable, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. A homeless woman and a billionaire CEO. They will whisper, they will speculate. Let them whisper, Maya replied, her voice firm. They don't know what we have built. They don't understand the foundation of trust between us. Julian smiled, a genuine heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. They don't. He then surprised her by saying, there's a major philanthropic gala next month, a chance to formally launch the foundation and secure significant funding. I would like you to accompany me, as my guest, as a co-chair, in essence. The invitation was a bold declaration, a public acknowledgement of their alliance and more. It was a signal to the world that Maya was not just a participant in his philanthropic efforts, but an integral part of his life. The thought of stepping into such a spotlight, surrounded by the city's elite, was daunting, but the thought of standing by Julian's side, of representing the foundation and its mission, filled her with a quiet sense of purpose and pride. I would be honored, she said, her voice filled with a newfound confidence. The whispers of an alliance were growing louder, and Maya was ready to embrace them, standing beside Julian, a testament to the power of kindness and the unexpected turns of fate. Chapter 9. The Unveiling. The months leading up to the philanthropic gala were a whirlwind of activity for Maya. Julian had been true to his word, and her role in the foundation had expanded significantly. She was no longer just a participant. She was a key figure, her insights shaping the foundation's outreach programs and its strategic direction. Julian had ensured she received the best resources and support, including private tutoring to hone her communication skills and a wardrobe that allowed her to move with grace and confidence in any setting. The transformation in Maya was remarkable. While the core of her compassion and resilience remained, her outward presentation had blossomed. She carried herself with an assuredness that belied her past. The girl who had once huddled in an alcove was now a confident woman, ready to stand on a stage and speak about hope and opportunity. The gala itself was held at the city's most prestigious ballroom, a cavernous space adorned with crystal chandeliers and breathtaking floral arrangements. The air thrummed with anticipation. A sea of the city's most influential figures gathered under one roof. As Julian, impeccably dressed in a tuxedo, led Maya into the ballroom, a hush fell over the room, followed by a ripple of murmurs and curious glances. Maya, in a stunning emerald green gown that seemed to capture the light, felt a flicker of her old nervousness, but Julian's hand, warm and steady, on her arm, reassured her. He introduced her with pride, not just as his guest, but as his partner, the co-chair of the Sterling Foundation. Throughout the evening, Julian remained by her side, his quiet support a constant anchor. He introduced her to influential donors and community leaders, allowing her to articulate her vision for the foundation. Maya spoke with passion and clarity, her words resonating with the sincerity of her experience. She shared stories of lives touched by small acts of kindness, of individuals who, given a chance, had transformed their circumstances. During his address, Julian spoke eloquently about the Foundation's mission, but he dedicated a significant portion of his speech to Maya. "Tonight," he said, his voice carrying through the hushed room, "I want to acknowledge the true inspiration behind this endeavor. It began with a simple act of profound generosity from a woman named Maya, a woman who, despite having nothing, possessed the greatest wealth of all, a boundless heart. She taught me that true wealth lies not in what we accumulate, but in what we give. And together, with Maya by my side, we are committed to building a legacy of hope." The applause that followed was thunderous, a wave of genuine admiration washing over Maya. She looked at Julian, her heart swelling with gratitude and a love she could no longer deny. The whispers of speculation that had once swirled around them now seemed to be replaced by a sense of awe and respect. They saw not just a billionaire and a former homeless woman, but a formidable team, united by a shared vision and a powerful connection. As the evening drew to a close, Julian led Maya out onto a balcony overlooking the glittering cityscape. The air was cool and crisp, and the city spread out before them like a jeweled carpet. He turned to her, his eyes alight with emotion. "You were magnificent tonight, Maya," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You shone." "We were magnificent," Maya corrected softly, her gaze meeting his. "We did this together." He gently cupped her face, his thumb stroking her cheek. "Maya," he began, his voice laced with emotion, "this journey with you has been the most rewarding of my life. I love you." Tears welled in Maya's eyes, tears of pure joy and disbelief. The homeless girl who had given away her last $5 had found not just security, but love, purpose, and a future beyond her wildest dreams. "I love you too, Julian," she whispered, her heart overflowing. The unveiling was complete, not just of the foundation but of their love, a love forged in unexpected kindness and destined for a future as bright as the city lights spread out before them. Chapter 10. A Legacy of Compassion. The philanthropic gala marked a turning point not just for the Sterling Foundation, but for Maya and Julian's relationship. The public acknowledgement of their partnership, and Julian's heartfelt declaration of love, solidified their bond in the eyes of the world, and more importantly, in their own hearts. The whispers of improbable romance had transformed into an enduring narrative of a love story that defied expectations and celebrated the transformative power of human connection. With the foundation officially launched and significant funding secured, Maya and Julian threw themselves into their work with renewed vigor. Maya, drawing on her unique perspective, became the heart and soul of the organization. She championed innovative programs that provided not just shelter and food, but also job training, educational resources, and mental health support. She met with individuals facing hardship, listening to their stories, offering not just aid, but genuine empathy and encouragement. Julian, with his business acumen and vast network, provided the infrastructure and resources to scale their efforts. He marveled at Maya's unwavering dedication and her ability to connect with people on a profound level. She inspired him, reminding him daily of the core values that had driven him from the beginning, the belief in second chances and the importance of lifting others up. Their relationship deepened with each passing day. They became each other's confidants, partners in both life and work. Julian learned from Maya's resilience, her gratitude for life's simple joys, and her unwavering optimism. Maya in turn flourished under Julian's unwavering support and